You can hide a poor suspension setup behind sticky tires and instant EV torque on asphalt, but here on ice at Circuit Mechagliss, mechanical grip is effectively zero. On dry pavement, you can hide a lot behind torque and tire. Torque is easy, communication is hard. Ice makes the difference obvious. Either the chassis is talking to you or you're negotiating with software. Today we're finding out if the Polestar 4's chassis communicates weight transfer or if its digital safety net acts like a straitjacket. Before you can evaluate chassis communication, you have to understand what the powertrain is trying to say in the first place. And on ice, over 500 horsepower is speaking a different vocabulary. Here, power isn't the headline, resolution is. Numbers mean nothing here, and this is the kind of place where horsepower arguments go to die. The only thing that matters here is that you can add torque in small enough increments that the tires don't file a complaint. And on a surface with effectively zero mechanical grip, that window is the entire driving experience. What matters is how much power you can use in 1% increments, and the Polestar 4's throttle map is surprisingly granular for something that makes 506 pounds of torque. You're not fighting an on-off switch. There's a usable window between nothing and instant oversteer. Electric motors don't have a power band, they have a power wall. Everything arrives immediately. On dry asphalt, that's a party trick. On ice, it's a liability if the calibration isn't right. The Polestar 4's rear motor has enough resolution in its torque delivery that you can hold a steady state slide just by breathing on the accelerator. It's not throttle steering in the traditional sense, but the motors respond fast enough that the distinction doesn't even matter. Traction control here isn't a single system. It's a negotiation between motor torque limits, stability control intervention, and the all-wheel drive torque split, all happening faster than you can process. In the most aggressive setting, the car lets you rotate and then sustain whatever yaw angle you want as long as your inputs are correct. The question isn't whether it works, because it clearly does. It's whether you're smooth enough so that this Polestar trusts you enough to let you find out on your own. These 5,200 pounds become extremely honest on ice. Once that mass starts rotating, the motors have to work overtime just to arrest it. There's a moment where you feel the motors calculating their next move. There's no mechanical limited slip diff here, just software managing torque split. On a surface where grip changes by the millimeter, the system's reaction speed actually works in your favor. A mechanical diff would be much slower to respond. Subscribers get notified when new episodes drop on our channel. Non-subscribers hope the algorithm will show it to them eventually. And if you want to control when you see episodes on this channel, well, that's what the subscribe button does. Here is where you find what the car is communicating and what it's hiding, because that conversation you have with the steering on ice becomes a whisper. It's really a whisper. You get enough information to feel clever right up until the front gives up politely without sending a memo. You learn to read it eventually. Brake pedal feel on ice tells you more about the brake-by-wire calibration than the brakes themselves. Initial application is progressive, which matters because ABS starts working almost immediately on the surface. The system pulses smoothly. There's no violent chattering through the pedal. What's interesting is how much this car relies on regen for initial deceleration before the actual brakes contribute. And these freezing temps on sheet ice, that split second of regen first braking changes the weight transfer timing. Here's where the 50-50 weight distribution and dampers earn their keep. Mid-slide, the car has a natural balance point that's remarkably easy to find. The battery pack sits low and centered, and the mass wants to rotate around the middle rather than pendulum off one end. The dampers firm up during direction changes, and you can feel them fighting to keep the body settled when the tires have already given up. It's the difference between managing a slide and being a passenger in one. The dampers face an almost impossible task on ice, managing the weight transfer of 5,200 pounds across a surface that can't push back. When you pitch the car sideways, there's a primary weight shift, then a secondary oscillation as the dampers try to slow down body motion. On tarmac, you'd never notice it. On ice, where every input is amplified and slowed down like a replay, you can feel the dampers winning that fight within about half a heartbeat. No secondary bounce. The suspension settles and you can commit to the next input. That's the part the press release can't translate. It takes a set, it stays there, and stops making you manage the car's moods. If you want to support the channel beyond just watching, well, the merch store is open, and your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this and less time worrying about manufacturer blacklists. No pressure, just an option. The seating position has you seated much lower than pretty much everything in this segment. I'm nice and low in the chassis, lots of adjustment in this steering wheel. I'm seated perfectly and effectively behind the wheel, and Polestar does some of the best seats in the business. This seat is incredibly comfortable, incredibly supportive, and I've spent a lot of time in it today, and I'm consistently impressed with Polestar seats, and these are no exception. The elephant in this room, as well as the comment section, has been the lack of a rear window, but there's no need to beat this horse to death. It's not an issue because that rear camera is so good. That missing rear window stops being a talking point after about 3 minutes. Below freezing ambient temps expose interior things in ways a California press launch never will. With 3 people tracking snow in and out of this car, 3 people talking, and of course keeping the cabin warm, what happens is the windows actually fog, and it's a bit of a challenge to keep those windows clear. And here, the heated seats aren't a luxury, they're a necessity. I didn't just spend a bunch of time behind the wheel, I actually spent some time in this rear seat, and it's exceptionally spacious and comfortable. Lots of room even with this Polestar 4's lower roofline. Plus, under the hatch, there's plenty of cargo space. No trouble loading my camera bag, backpack, and other gear into the back of this Polestar. The like button tells YouTube to share this episode with more people like you interested in an episode like this, and if this episode gave you more information than a brochure or a press release, that's the entire ask. So, communicator or straitjacket? Well, the Polestar 4's chassis on ice communicates to let me know exactly what's going on the road surface, and here it's ice where traction is near zero. The analog bits, the dampers, the brakes, the suspension geometry, those are doing real work. The digital bits, the torque split, the stability management, they're fast and almost invisible. When you strip away mechanical grip entirely, you find a car that was engineered with genuine chassis discipline underneath the software. It doesn't feel like a straitjacket. It feels more like a safety net that's hanging out just in case. Which is reassuring because the chassis is competent when you take the training wheels off. This ICE event format is the most honest test that Polestar could have offered. At 5,200 pounds, this Polestar 4 has no right to feel composed when you're drifting it sideways. That's the 2026 Polestar 4. Subscribe if you like this, don't if you don't. Comments are open if you disagree, and the merch store is open if you want to support more of these. See you on the next one.